My wife gave birth, and now we only have cuddles once every 6 months. I don't think she finds me attractive anymore. I'm a 28-year-old man, and my wife is 29. Our daughter will be 7 months old in September. We've been together for almost 5 years, and we'll be celebrating our second wedding anniversary soon. We live in a place surrounded by family, but they're all at least 2+ hours away. We both work full-time, so our daughter goes to daycare. We have 3 cats, and while we make ends meet, we save a bit for small adventures or emergencies. My wife has PTSD from giving birth. She's scared that having special cuddles might lead to complications or another pregnancy. Her pregnancy was high risk, but thankfully, both she and our baby are healthy. However, our bedroom life has been a struggle for 4 years. When we first started dating, we had special cuddles 3 to 6 times a week. I felt better than ever, physically and mentally. But then something changed. My wife had an issue during cuddles once, and although her OB assured us it was temporary, things never went back to normal. She switched medications for birth control, ADHD, and depression, and her libido vanished. Note, I do not remember exactly what the name of the complication was. There were a couple of complications or excuses throughout 4 years. At one point she had back surgery, at another point she had coochie surgery, which she fully recovered in 3 weeks, and at another point, she changed her medications again. We got through all of it together, but there was still a lack of cuddle intimacy all these years. Outside of recovery periods, she'd have a random excuse as to why she's not in the mood. At the end of the day, it was simple. Her libido appeared to have vanished. Note, my wife has never gotten a test for this, nor seems to have any interest in doing so. For the longest time, my wife blamed her new birth control but refused to change it. We discussed our cuddle life with a marriage counselor, and my wife kept saying, once we get married, I can get off birth control, and my drive should come back. I asked for a couple of months of frequent cuddles before trying for a baby, but she always laughed or rolled her eyes. Our counselor suggested I self-cuddle, but it didn't help much. After we got married, we had cuddles twice in the 2 weeks we were off with just the 2 of us. At one point, we were stuck in a hotel during our honeymoon due to a hurricane, but she wasn't in the mood. I felt incredibly insecure. She eventually got off birth control, and our cuddle life improved slightly. We had cuddles once a month. When I asked if we could try something to boost her libido, she refused. Finally, she agreed to talk to her doctors. She changed her depression medication, and that's when her drive started coming back. We had cuddles about 3 times in a single month before we found out she was pregnant. It was July 2023. We were both very excited and happy to finally be having a baby. We jumped on top of each other, and it felt like we were going to have cuddles again. But, out of nowhere, my wife rejected me, gave no reason or explanation. During her pregnancy, we had cuddles 3 times. Once on our anniversary in September 2023, and twice in November of 2023. Since then, we haven't had cuddles. Not once. There were several times she teased me as if we were going to, but never did. It's been 8 long months now with no changes, and it'll be 10 months when we reach our wedding anniversary in September. Last weekend, we were on a road trip listening to the 2 Hot Takes podcast. There was a story about a husband with a dead bedroom for 3 years. My wife noticed I was getting depressed and put her hand on my shoulder. After the story, she assured me she loved me but needed time to recover from her PTSD. I was frustrated as I know our bedroom has been dead for way longer than that. I had brought up I wanted us to go to counseling, but she almost immediately changed the subject. A few days later, I brought up our wedding anniversary. I was hoping that we'd possibly be able to have cuddles if she consented to it. My thought was us staying in a hotel room with just the 2 of us. She just says, maybe, but we have our daughter now. I asked about having one of our mothers babysit for a weekend. She said no, that's too long to be without her. I asked about a night. She said no, she doesn't want to sleep without her in the room yet. We have before, but we were in the house and one of our mothers had her with them. I then asked if we just have a few hours by ourselves in the evening, when we leave to go back home to our daughter and we just have a few hours in a hotel. She again said no. I replied, I just want to be able to be intimate with you again. I miss you so much and I want to be close to you. I'm here for you, and I know you're going through a lot and have PTSD, but I'm trying my best to try and make this work. My wife just replies, I know. Then, she will either walk away or change the subject. We've had a multitude of the same conversations in different ways for a couple of years. Every time, we're sitting down alone and having a serious conversation. My wife acknowledges my feelings, but rejects my suggestions and doesn't offer alternatives. She always says one of the following: I'm working on it, but never gives me an update as to what she's doing. I don't want to have cuddles with anyone right now, which gives me chills because she says, "With anyone?" I know, and you keep bringing it up while trying to be polite, but sounds upset. The years of rejection are starting to get to me harder than the past 4 years. I have no intention of ever leaving my wife as I love her so much and she's my person. Cuddles is something that has proven to help both of our mental health when regulated. But now, I'm not sure if things will ever be like they used to or even close. Am I the a-hole to ask for just a few hours for us to be alone to at least try to have cuddles on our anniversary? Relevant comments. Commenter. NTA. I will ask, is the resentment you are feeling right now greater than your love for her? Honestly, with how long it's been dead, anything she says is gonna be an excuse. She has so many chances to fix it, but she doesn't want to. But of course it'll get thrown back onto you. Wait until you hear, "If only you did this or this." OP. I wouldn't say it's resentment. I'd say I feel distant from her, just only cuddle-wise. My love for her is way above it though. The intimacy would strengthen our relationship though, and life as parents would be way less stressful. Commenter. Honestly, I don't know what to say. You're obviously not the AH, and you know it too, but really this is something she genuinely needs to properly focus on and get it checked out. This can't just be PTSD because, like you mentioned, this has been happening from way before. She's slowly killing you from the inside and you both are too blind to see it, Imo. You want to stay with her because you love her, and I completely get it and praise you for it, but come on. You need to love yourself too. Just reading this, I can sense how depleted your self-esteem is. That can't be good. OP. I've had issues with self-esteem since high school. I'm also autistic. Things that make one person sad, I feel devastated. Things that make someone happy makes me overly excited. In the past, I'd masturbate or work out to let off steam. Cuddles with her outmatches anything that's ever helped with my depression and anxiety. It's even helped with my OCD. Since I've been without it for so long, now I'm just more on edge. When it comes to confronting people, it's very hard for me. So when my wife and I would have these conversations, it took a lot for me to get to that point where I can talk about it comfortably. Getting rejected afterwards just puts me back down. Update 1. I was shocked when I woke up this morning to so many comments. It feels great to be a part of a community with so many people. Thank you to everyone helping me through this. I have a legit update to my story, and I want to answer some questions as well. The first is actually about the first complication that happened when we were dating for about 6 months. I did some digging at my old messages and remembered she had gotten a cut inside of her from my fingernail. We didn't notice it until we were having sex, and it wasn't big enough to where it needed stitches. The medications were to prevent infection. Coincidentally, when she got the medications to prevent infection, my wife changed all her medications. They were starting to clash with each other, making her either have nausea, headaches, stomach pain, or she'd feel sadder than usual. Her psychiatrist helped her with her ADHD and depression medications, while her OB helped with her birth control. The mix of the three caused the symptoms, not the sex altercation. There were a few unfortunate times where I accidentally cut her happened again, but they all went away on their own and were very, very tiny. My wife told me it's fine and she's content to keep going. With my eczema, I've had an issue with being very itchy pretty much my whole life. This made my fingernails over time super sharp. I have to cut them frequently just to not accidentally cut myself. My nails chip every now and then, which also doesn't help. My wife has been very loving and understanding with this issue for me and has never judged me for it. Later on, the surgery she had was a small mass. At first we thought it was cancer, but it was built up tissue. We got it out and the recovery period was 3 weeks. My wife initiated Cuddles the second that ended. This was all before her back surgery. Nothing else alarming or concerning after that, and no surgeries on the inside again. Now to her back surgery. She had surgery at L5S1, spinal fusion. This caused chronic pains that come back if she does too much lifting or outserts herself. I helped her through the entire process from when her back started hurting, her surgery, and after. It was the first time she was having surgery in a hospital to where she needs to have anesthesia. She was very scared, but she brought it up to all her friends and family that she couldn't have done it without me. She was told she couldn't have Cuddles for 6 weeks. Ironically, she kept asking for Cuddles, and I had to tell her no. The doctor was very persistent in telling us not to, as it could mess with the spinal fusion. So, I had to keep saying now. The second it was 6 weeks, she jumped on top of me. My wife had to change her medications a couple of times after this over a couple of years. She had told me she's trying to fix 3 things: being able to focus, have a higher cuddle drive, and be less depressed. There were ups and downs, and sometimes our bedroom was dead for months while others not. Nothing was consistent, which neither of us liked. Getting updates didn't always happen, but she'd express that she wants to have cuddles, but has no drive. My intrusive thoughts interpret that as, she doesn't want me. I'd like to answer one more question before the update. Divorce isn't an option because I never want to spend the rest of my life without her. The teasing bothers me, yes. The lack of cuddles for months bothers me, yes. But nothing would hurt me more than to be without her. I take her out to dinner, I help whenever I can around the house, I'm always there for her and my daughter, and we hug at least 5 times a day if not more. When it comes to cuddles, it does make this huge positive impact on our life and in our marriage. I will do whatever it takes to be with my wife and daughter for the rest of my life. Now, onto the update. I was working from home and I come sit with my wife and I pick up our daughter and sit on the couch. At first, my wife asked what I wanted for dinner. I was asking about what food we had, and she said she wasn't sure, so I checked. It dawned on me, the trouble in paradise? THD episode, be spontaneous. I told my wife, I'm going to take you out. I'd like to go on a date with you. She blushed and smiled and got very excited. We got dressed and we went out, but I didn't tell her where we were going. A couple years ago, our favorite Mexican restaurant had closed down due to a fire. It had a special meaning for us. It was the first place we had dinner when we moved in together. The restaurant had just reopened, and I took her there as a surprise. We had a lot of fun. We drank, we ate, and more importantly, queso. We had a chance to talk about cuddles. My wife brought it up first. She said she wanted to give me an update, saying she's starting to feel a little something again, but usually goes away when the baby cries. Our daughter is actually very chill, and we cope her in extremely well. My wife talks about me in public all the time, and so do even strangers. I get compliments about how great I'm doing when in reality I have no idea what I'm doing. Anyways, I told her I had made a decision about the vasectomy and how I want to go through with it. She asked if I was sure, and that I don't feel like she's forcing me to. I said she's not. I said right now we need cuddles, and if we end up having another one it'll be in 5 years or more. She asked if I'm sure as there's a chance it won't be reversible. I told her that it's okay if it doesn't because we will find a way to have another one if we're financially able to. We have a plan. I have a doctor picked out and my insurance looks like it's covering most of it and within our budget. As for timing, we're looking for ASAP. Relevant comments. OP on how long it has been since his wife has given birth when they had cuddles. OP, it's been 5 months since giving birth, 8 months since we had cuddles. Anniversary is in 2 months. From what I read online, it's common to not desire cuddles for at least a year since giving birth. It's a traumatic experience and I get that. I'm not going to force her to have sex on our anniversary, but I do want to. All I can do is help her through this and wait till she's comfortable again. Update 2. I didn't expect to be back here so soon, but a lot has happened in the past couple of weeks and I needed to share. After our amazing dinner date, things seemed to be looking up. We felt closer, and my wife even started to initiate more physical affection, like hand-holding and kissing, which was a big deal considering how distant she'd been. We continued our daily routines, but there was this new, hopeful energy between us. I was optimistic that maybe, just maybe, things would finally change. Then, about a week ago, I got an email from the vasectomy clinic confirming my consultation. I decided to talk to my wife about it again, making sure she was still on board. She reassured me that it was a good idea, especially since we weren't ready for another baby anytime soon. We agreed that after the procedure, we'd see if it would help alleviate some of her fears about getting pregnant again. Meanwhile, I was still working from home most days and taking on as much of the household duties as possible. This allowed my wife to have more time to rest and recover mentally from everything. Our daughter was growing quickly, and every little milestone she hit was a source of joy for both of us. One evening, my wife came into my home office and sat down, looking more relaxed than she had in a while. She started talking about how she'd been feeling more positive and less anxious lately. She said the date night had reminded her of how much fun we used to have together and how she wanted to try to get back to that place. We ended up having a really deep conversation about our relationship, our fears, and our hopes for the future. She admitted that she had been avoiding cuddles not just because of the fear of pregnancy, but because she felt a lot of pressure to make it perfect when we did. She was worried about disappointing me if she wasn't completely ready, both physically and mentally. Hearing her say this was eye-opening for me. I told her that all I wanted was to be close to her again, and that it didn't have to be perfect. We could take things slow, and I would be there to support her every step of the way. We agreed to communicate more openly about our needs and fears, and to be patient with each other. In the following days, we started incorporating more small moments of intimacy into our routine. We'd cuddle on the couch while watching TV, give each other massages, and just spend time talking and connecting. It felt like we were rediscovering each other, and it was amazing. Last night, we put our daughter to bed early and decided to have a quiet evening at home. We made dinner together, something we hadn't done in ages, and then sat down to watch a movie. About halfway through the movie, my wife turned to me and said she wanted to try having cuddles. My heart skipped a beat, but I remained calm, not wanting to put any pressure on her. We went to the bedroom and took things slow. It wasn't perfect, but it was intimate and loving, and it felt like a huge step forward for both of us. Afterward, we just held each other and talked, and I realized that this was the closest we'd felt in a long time. Update 3. A couple of weeks have passed since my last update, and I wish I could say everything continued to improve, but life is rarely that straightforward. While my wife and I have made some progress, we've hit a few bumps in the road, and I need to be honest about them. The first week after our rekindled intimacy was great. We felt closer than we had in a long time. We went on another date, this time to a small local festival. We laughed, ate too much cotton candy, and just enjoyed being together. It was almost like we were dating again, but then reality started to creep back in. My wife had a rough day at work and came home exhausted. Our daughter was teething, and neither of us was getting much sleep. The stress levels in our house skyrocketed, and we found ourselves falling back into old patterns of avoidance and frustration. One night, after a particularly hard day, I tried to initiate cuddles, but my wife turned me down. She said she was too tired and just wanted to sleep. I understood, but it still hurt. The next day, we had a small argument about something trivial, but it escalated quickly. We both said things we didn't mean, and it brought back all those feelings of insecurity and distance. We decided to take a step back and talk about what was happening. We acknowledged that while we had made progress, we still had a lot of work to do. My wife admitted she was struggling with balancing her own needs with the demands of motherhood and her job. She felt overwhelmed and needed more support. I listened and tried to be as understanding as possible. I reminded her that we were a team and that we could get through this together. We agreed to go back to our marriage counselor to help us navigate this new phase of our relationship. At our counseling session, we discussed our recent progress and setbacks. The counselor suggested that we create a more structured approach to intimacy, setting aside specific times to focus on each other without distractions. It sounded a bit clinical, but we were willing to try anything at this point. We also talked about the vasectomy again. I had my consultation and was scheduled for the procedure in a few weeks. My wife expressed her gratitude for my willingness to do this, and it seemed to alleviate some of her anxiety about getting pregnant again. Despite the setbacks, we are both committed to making this work. We've started a new routine where we have a date night every week, even if it's just a couple of hours at home with takeout and a movie. We're also trying to communicate more openly about our feelings and needs. It's not easy, and there are days when it feels like we're back at square one. But there are also moments of connection and love that remind us why we're doing this. Like when our daughter says her first word, it was dada, by the way, or when we laugh together over something silly. Update 4. I never imagined I'd be back with another update so soon, but life has a way of throwing curveballs when you least expect them. This past month has been a whirlwind of emotions, and I'm still trying to process everything that's happened. A few weeks after our last counseling session, things were starting to look up again. My wife and I were sticking to our weekly date nights, and the structured approach to intimacy was helping. We weren't back to our old selves, but we were making progress. Then, out of nowhere, my wife got a call from her job that changed everything. Her company was downsizing, and she was one of the employees being let go. The news hit her hard. She had been with the company for years and loved her job. Losing it was a huge blow to her confidence and added a new layer of stress to our already complicated situation. For the first few days, she was in shock. She cried a lot, and I did my best to support her. I took on even more responsibilities at home to give her time to process and grieve. I reassured her that we'd get through this together, but I could see the toll it was taking on her. Our daughter was also going through a particularly fussy phase, which meant neither of us was getting much sleep. The combination of sleep deprivation, job loss, and our ongoing intimacy struggles created a perfect storm of stress and tension in our household. One night, after a particularly rough day, my wife broke down. She admitted she felt like she was failing in every aspect of her life, her job, her role as a mother, and her role as a wife. She said she felt guilty for not being able to give me the intimacy I needed and worried that I would eventually leave her. Hearing her say this broke my heart. I reassured her that I wasn't going anywhere and that we were in this together. I told her I loved her more than anything and that we would find a way through this, just like we always had. We spent the next few days focusing on her job search and trying to get her back on her feet. I helped her update her resume, and we spent hours searching for job listings and filling out applications. It was a stressful and exhausting process, but it brought us closer together in a way that nothing else had. Then, out of the blue, she got a call from a company she'd interviewed with months ago. They had a position open and wanted to know if she was still interested. It was a glimmer of hope in an otherwise dark time. She had a second interview, and a few days later, she got the job. The new job came with a lot of changes, different hours, a longer commute, and new responsibilities. But it also brought a sense of excitement and renewed purpose for my wife. She started to regain her confidence, and the positive changes began to spill over into other areas of our life. Our intimacy issues haven't completely disappeared, but we're in a much better place than we were a few months ago. We're continuing with our weekly date nights, and my wife has been more open about her feelings and needs. We've also started seeing a therapist together to work through some of the deeper issues that have been affecting our relationship.